Revenge doesn't always come in whispers. Sometimes, it arrives with gunfire. The case of Susan in 2025 is one of the most chilling examples of calculated violence. At 45 years old, Susan had already lived through 2 failed marriages. Both relationships had ended in bitterness, accusations, and unresolved conflicts. But no one could have predicted that her anger and resentment would culminate in a shocking act of double murder. On a single day in 2025, Susan tracked down both of her ex-husbands. The men, who had once shared homes and lives with her, were now living separately, trying to move on from their past. But Susan had other plans. Armed with a firearm, she confronted each of them and pulled the trigger. Within hours, 2 men were dead, both killed by the same woman they had once loved. Investigators were stunned by the brutality and precision of the crime. It wasn't a crime of passion committed in the heat of the moment. It was deliberate. Susan had planned her actions, chosen her targets, and executed her plan with chilling determination. The fact that she killed not 1, but 2 ex-husbands in a single day made the case stand out as one of the most disturbing domestic crimes of the year. The motive became the central question. Why would Susan commit such an act? Prosecutors argued that she was driven by resentment, jealousy, and a desire for control. Her marriages had ended badly, and she carried grudges that never faded. Instead of moving on, she allowed her bitterness to grow until it consumed her. During the trial, witnesses described Susan as manipulative and controlling. Her ex-husbands had spoken of toxic relationships, constant arguments, and emotional strain. Friends recalled her anger and her inability to let go of the past. The prosecution painted her as a woman who believed that if she couldn't have peace, neither could the men who had once been part of her life. The defense tried to argue that Susan was mentally unstable, that her actions were the result of psychological breakdown rather than cold calculation. But the evidence told another story. The planning, the weapon, the timing, all pointed to intent. The jury was left with little doubt. Susan was convicted of double homicide. The judge sentenced her to life imprisonment, ensuring that she would never again walk free. For the families of the victims, the verdict brought some measure of justice, though the pain of losing 2 loved ones in such a brutal way could never truly be healed. The case of Susan is more than just a crime story. It is a reminder of how unresolved anger can turn into something deadly. It shows how relationships, when poisoned by resentment, can lead to unimaginable consequences. And it forces us to confront the reality that sometimes, the people we once trusted most can become our greatest danger. For the community, the murders were a wake-up call. Domestic violence and toxic relationships are not just private matters. They can escalate into tragedies that affect everyone. For law enforcement, the case highlighted the importance of recognizing warning signs before they spiral out of control. Susan's story is now remembered as one of the darkest chapters in 2025. A woman who could not let go of her past chose to end 2 lives in a single day, leaving behind a trail of grief, shock, and unanswered questions. The Susan case asks us to consider: how far can anger drive a person, and what happens when revenge becomes stronger than reason? Sometimes, the people meant to protect you can become the ones who destroy you. The case of Molly Martins in 2015 is one of the most unsettling stories of family loyalty twisted into violence. At 32 years old, Molly was married to Jason Corbett, an Irish father of 2 who had moved to North Carolina to build a new life with her. To outsiders, their marriage seemed stable, but inside the home, tensions were rising. On the night of August 2, 2015, Jason was brutally killed in his own bedroom. The attackers were not strangers, nor intruders. They were Molly and her father, Thomas Martins. Armed with a baseball bat and a concrete paving brick, they struck Jason repeatedly until he was dead. The crime scene was described as horrific, with evidence showing Jason had been beaten beyond recognition. Molly and her father claimed self-defense. They argued that Jason was abusive and that they acted to protect Molly. But investigators found inconsistencies in their story. Jason's children, who were asleep in the house that night, later testified that their father was not abusive, and that Molly had been manipulative and controlling. The trial became a media sensation. Prosecutors painted Molly and her father as conspirators who planned Jason's death. They argued that Molly wanted control over Jason's children and resented his refusal to let her adopt them. The defense maintained their claim of self-defense, but the brutality of the attack made it difficult to believe. In 2017, Molly and Thomas were convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to 20 to 25 years in prison. But the case did not end there. Appeals followed, and in 2021, the convictions were overturned due to issues with jury instructions. The case was retried, and in 2022, both Molly and her father pleaded guilty to voluntary manslaughter. Their sentences were reduced to time already served plus probation. For Jason's family in Ireland, the outcome was devastating. They believed justice had not been fully served. His children were eventually returned to Ireland to live with relatives, away from Molly's influence. The case highlighted the complexities of domestic violence claims, family loyalty, and the challenges of proving intent in court. Molly's story is remembered as one of betrayal and manipulation. She presented herself as a victim, but the evidence suggested she was far from innocent. Her father's involvement added another layer of tragedy, a parent helping his child commit a crime rather than guiding her toward peace. The tragedy of Jason Corbett's death proves that sometimes the greatest danger comes from within the home. It shows how family bonds can be twisted into something destructive, how claims of self-defense can be used to mask violence, and how justice can sometimes feel incomplete. The Molly Martins case asks us to consider, when love, loyalty, and protection are corrupted, how far can people go to justify the unjustifiable? Sometimes, the walls of a home hide battles that end in tragedy. At 41 years old, Julie was married to Jason Harper, a beloved math teacher and coach. To the outside world, they seemed like a normal suburban couple raising 3 children. But inside their home, tensions were rising, and their marriage was unraveling. On August 5, 2012, during a heated argument in their Carlsbad home, Julie pulled out a handgun and shot Jason in the chest. Their children were in the house at the time, though not in the room where the shooting occurred. Jason collapsed and died instantly. Julie claimed she acted in self-defense, saying Jason had been abusive and that she feared for her life. The case dragged on for years, with multiple trials and appeals. Prosecutors argued that Julie's actions were premeditated. They pointed to her history of recording arguments with Jason, her financial struggles, and her attempts to portray herself as a victim. The defense maintained that Julie was protecting herself from an abusive husband. The evidence, however, told a different story. Jason was unarmed when he was shot. Investigators found no immediate threat that justified Julie's use of deadly force. Instead, the prosecution painted her as a woman who wanted control, who chose violence rather than seeking help or leaving the marriage. In 2016, after years of courtroom battles, Julie Harper was convicted of second-degree murder. The judge sentenced her to 40 years to life in prison. For Jason's family, the verdict brought some measure of justice, though the pain of losing a son, brother, and father could never truly be healed. The trial highlighted the complexities of domestic disputes. It raised questions about self-defense, abuse, and the line between victim and perpetrator. But in the end, the jury concluded that Julie's actions were not justified. For the community, Jason Harper's death was devastating. He was remembered as a dedicated teacher, a mentor to students, and a loving father. His loss left a void that could never be filled. For Julie, the conviction meant spending the rest of her life behind bars, reflecting on the choices that led to that fatal day. The Julie Harper case is remembered as a tragic story of a marriage that ended in gunfire. It shows how unresolved conflict, resentment, and desperation can escalate into violence. It reminds us that behind closed doors, even ordinary families can face extraordinary dangers. The Julie Harper case leaves us with a haunting lesson. When anger and fear replace communication and trust, the results can be deadly. Some secrets are hidden underground, but eventually, the truth always rises to the surface. The case of Crystal McDowell in 2017 is one of betrayal, deception, and a chilling attempt to erase a life. At 38 years old, Crystal was living in Texas, married, and seemingly settled. But behind the facade of normalcy, her marriage was troubled. Arguments, resentment, and emotional distance had created cracks that would eventually lead to tragedy. In August 2017, Crystal's husband suddenly disappeared. Friends and family were alarmed when he failed to show up for planned events. At first, Crystal played the role of the worried spouse, telling people she had no idea where he was. But investigators soon uncovered a darker truth. After days of searching, authorities discovered his body buried in a shallow grave. The cause of death was homicide, and suspicion quickly turned to Crystal. Evidence revealed that she had killed him and attempted to hide the crime by burying his body. The act was not only brutal but also calculated, an effort to cover up her actions and continue life as if nothing had happened. The investigation revealed disturbing details. Crystal had been struggling with personal issues and conflicts in her marriage. Prosecutors argued that she was motivated by anger and a desire to escape the relationship. Her attempt to bury the body showed intent to conceal the crime, making it clear this was no accident. The trial in 2017 captured public attention. Prosecutors presented forensic evidence, witness testimony, and Crystal's inconsistent statements. The defense tried to argue that she acted in a moment of emotional breakdown, but the jury was unconvinced. The deliberate burial of the body was seen as proof of her awareness and guilt. Crystal McDowell was convicted of murder and sentenced to life imprisonment. For the victim's family, the verdict brought some measure of justice, though the pain of losing a loved one in such a horrific way could never truly be healed. The case highlighted the dangers of unresolved conflict and the devastating consequences of violence within relationships. It showed how desperation and anger can lead to irreversible choices, and how attempts to hide the truth only deepen the tragedy. For the community, the crime was a wake-up call. A seemingly ordinary woman had committed an extraordinary act of violence, reminding everyone that appearances can be deceiving. For law enforcement, the case underscored the importance of persistence in uncovering hidden crimes. Crystal's story is now remembered as one of the darkest chapters in 2017. A wife who chose to bury her husband's body rather than face her problems ended up burying her own future as well. The Crystal McDowell story reminds us that no matter how deeply secrets are buried, justice has a way of uncovering the truth. A backyard can hide more than just memories. Sometimes, it hides murder. The story of Lori Shaver is one of hidden violence and delayed justice. At 37 years old, Lori lived in Florida with her husband, Michael Shaver. To neighbors, they seemed like an ordinary couple. But behind closed doors, their marriage was strained, filled with arguments and tension. In 2015, that tension reached a deadly breaking point. Without a trace, Michael was no longer seen. Friends and family grew concerned when he stopped showing up for work and social gatherings. Lori offered vague explanations, claiming he had left or that she didn't know where he was. 4 years, the mystery lingered. Michael's absence was painful, but without evidence of foul play, the case stalled. It wasn't until 2018 that investigators made a chilling discovery. Acting on a tip, police searched Lori's property. In the backyard, buried beneath the ground, they found human remains. Forensic testing confirmed the worst. It was Michael Shaver. He had been shot and buried by the very person he trusted most. News of the buried body left neighbors horrified. For 3 years, Lori had lived freely, hiding the truth in her own backyard. The act was not only brutal but calculated, a deliberate attempt to erase Michael from existence and continue life as if nothing had happened. Investigators pieced together the timeline. Evidence suggested Lori shot Michael during a domestic dispute, then buried his body to conceal the crime. Neighbors recalled suspicious behavior, including Lori's reluctance to let anyone near her property. The discovery of the grave confirmed their worst fears. The trial revealed disturbing details. Prosecutors argued that Lori was motivated by anger and resentment, unwilling to let her husband leave or control the situation. The defense tried to claim she acted in self-defense, but the burial of the body undermined that argument. The jury saw the concealment as proof of guilt. Lori Shaver was convicted, and the verdict brought long-awaited justice for Michael's family. 4 years, they had lived with uncertainty, not knowing what had happened to him. The discovery of his body and Lori's conviction finally gave them answers, though the pain of losing him could never truly be healed. The case highlighted the dangers of domestic conflict and the devastating consequences of violence within relationships. It showed how secrets can remain hidden for years, but eventually, the truth finds its way to the surface. For the community, the crime was a haunting reminder that evil can exist behind ordinary walls. A backyard, usually a place of family gatherings and laughter, had become a graveyard. For law enforcement, the case underscored the importance of persistence and following leads, no matter how much time has passed. Lori's story is now remembered as one of betrayal and concealment. A wife who chose to bury her husband's body rather than face her problems ended up burying her own future as well. The Lori Shaver story teaches us that no matter how carefully a crime is hidden, the truth has a way of breaking through the ground. She was trained to save lives, but instead, she chose to take them. Not all disappearances are mysteries. Some are crimes waiting to be uncovered. Anna Walsh's story is one of sudden disappearance, suspicion, and a high-profile investigation that gripped the nation in 2023. At 39 years old, Anna was a successful real estate executive, balancing her career with raising 3 young children. To friends and colleagues, she was ambitious, charismatic, and full of life. But behind the scenes, her marriage to Brian Walsh was troubled. On New Year's Day 2023, Anna was reported missing. She was supposed to travel for work, but she never arrived. Her phone went silent, her social media inactive, and her presence vanished. Family and friends grew alarmed, and police launched an investigation. Attention quickly turned to her husband, Brian. Investigators discovered troubling evidence. Surveillance footage, phone records, and internet searches suggested Brian's involvement. Among the most chilling discoveries were his online searches, which included questions about how to dispose of a body and how long it takes for someone to die. Police also found blood and a knife in the family's basement. Trash bags containing evidence were recovered, linking Brian to attempts at covering up a crime. Prosecutors argued that Anna had been murdered, and Brian was charged with her killing. The case became high-profile, covered widely in national media. It wasn't just the disappearance of a mother of 3, it was the unraveling of a marriage filled with secrets. Brian was already facing legal troubles related to fraud, and Anna's disappearance added another layer of suspicion. The trial revealed disturbing details. Prosecutors presented evidence of Brian's movements, his internet searches, and his attempts to clean up the crime scene. The defense tried to argue that Anna's disappearance was not proven to be murder, but the weight of evidence pointed strongly toward foul play. For Anna's family, the pain was immeasurable. Her children were left without a mother, and her loved ones struggled with the reality of her sudden loss. For the community, the case was a reminder that even successful, seemingly stable lives can hide dangerous secrets. The Anna Walsh investigation remains one of the most talked about cases of 2023. It highlighted the importance of forensic evidence, digital footprints, and persistence in uncovering the truth. It also showed how quickly suspicion can fall on those closest to the victim. The story of Anna Walsh reminds us that behind every disappearance lies a question, and sometimes, the answer reveals the darkest truths about trust and betrayal. Fire can erase evidence, but it can never erase the truth. The story of Melody Ferris is one of betrayal, concealment, and a shocking crime that unfolded in Georgia in 2018. At over 60 years old, Melody lived with her husband on a rural property. To neighbors, they seemed like an ordinary couple living a quiet life. But behind the walls of their home, tension and resentment were brewing. That year, Melody's husband disappeared without a trace. Friends and family grew concerned, but Melody offered vague explanations. 4 months, the mystery lingered. What no one knew was that her husband had been killed, and his body burned in an attempt to erase all traces of the crime. Forensic teams struggled, because flames had erased the very signs of the crime, making it harder to determine cause of death. But suspicions grew, and detectives began to piece together the puzzle. Forensic experts examined the property, uncovering remains and signs of fire. The evidence pointed to Melody. The crime was not impulsive, it was calculated. Prosecutors argued that Melody killed her husband and then tried to cover her tracks by burning his body. The act was both brutal and deliberate, showing intent to conceal the truth. The investigation stretched over months, even years. Detectives interviewed neighbors, examined financial records, and studied Melody's behavior. Eventually, the weight of evidence was enough to arrest her. The trial revealed disturbing details. Prosecutors presented forensic findings, witness testimony, and Melody's inconsistent statements. The defense tried to argue that the crime was not premeditated, but the burning of the body undermined that claim. The jury saw it as proof of guilt. Melody Ferris was convicted and sentenced to life imprisonment. For the victim's family, the verdict brought justice, though the pain of losing him in such a horrific way could never truly be healed. The case highlighted the challenges of investigating crimes where evidence is deliberately destroyed. It showed how persistence, forensic science, and determination can uncover the truth even when someone tries to hide it in ashes. For the community, the crime was a chilling reminder that evil can exist behind ordinary doors. A rural property, usually a place of peace, had become the site of a deadly betrayal. For law enforcement, the case underscored the importance of never giving up, even when evidence seems lost. Melody's story is now remembered as one of the darkest chapters in Georgia's criminal history. A wife who chose to burn her husband's body rather than face her problems ended up burning her own future as well. The Melody Ferris story reminds us that while fire can destroy evidence, it cannot destroy justice, because the truth always finds a way to rise from the ashes. She danced on stage with grace, but off stage, her life spiraled into tragedy. Ashley Benefield's story is one of glamour, suspicion, and a shocking crime that captured headlines in 2020. Known for her background in ballet, Ashley was nicknamed the Black Swan after her arrest. At just 28 years old, she was living in Florida with her husband, Doug Benefield, a man nearly 2 decades older than her. Their marriage was short, turbulent, and filled with conflict. On September 27, 2020, Ashley called police to report that she had shot Doug. She claimed it was self-defense, saying she feared for her life. But investigators quickly began to question her account. Doug was unarmed when he was killed, and Ashley's story contained inconsistencies. The couple's relationship had been troubled from the start. Friends described it as volatile, with frequent arguments and accusations. Ashley alleged that Doug was abusive, while Doug's family insisted he was the victim of Ashley's manipulation. Their marriage lasted only 13 months before ending in violence. The crime scene told a chilling story. Doug had been shot inside their home, and Ashley admitted to pulling the trigger. But prosecutors argued that her actions were not self-defense, but murder. They pointed to her history of conflict with Doug, her attempts to control the relationship, and her decision to shoot rather than seek help. The case quickly became high-profile. Media outlets dubbed it the Black Swan murder, drawing parallels between Ashley's ballet background and the dark themes of the famous film Black Swan. The nickname added drama to an already sensational case, making it one of the most talked-about crimes in Florida that year. In court, Ashley's defense centered on claims of abuse. Her lawyers argued that she had been trapped in a dangerous marriage and acted to protect herself. Prosecutors countered that Doug's death was the result of Ashley's anger and manipulation, not self-defense. The trial revealed disturbing details about their relationship. Witnesses described Ashley as controlling and volatile, while Doug was portrayed as a man trying to hold his marriage together. The jury had to weigh conflicting accounts, forensic evidence, and the credibility of Ashley's claims. Ultimately, Ashley Benefield was charged with second-degree murder. The case remains a striking example of how love, conflict, and fear can spiral into violence. For Doug's family, the loss was devastating. They remembered him as a kind man, a father, and a husband whose life was cut short. For Ashley, the trial marked the end of her freedom and the collapse of her once promising future. The Black Swan murder case is remembered not only for its shocking crime, but for the way it highlighted the complexities of domestic disputes. It forced the public to confront questions about self-defense, abuse, and the thin line between victim and perpetrator. The Ashley Benefield story reminds us that behind elegance and beauty, darkness can lurk, and when fear and conflict collide, even the most graceful lives can end in tragedy.